You are with the big story here. I'm Seher Zama. We are continuing with the top focus on the spread of coronavirus in India. We're getting at an average of 8 to 10 new cases per day. Today, we're looking at 73 cases in all. These are 13 new cases reported today, with the WHO declaring it a global pandemic. The government of India has also now imposed with that stringent curbs on travel. India has virtually quarantined itself from the rest of the world. All visas issued to foreigners being suspended, apart from certain exceptions. This issue, which was mentioned in Parliament today as well. Our External Affairs Minister saying utmost precautions that are being taken to contain the spread. The spread is the key word here, to rein in the spread in India.
All existing visas, except diplomatic, official, UN, international organizations, employment, project visas, stand suspended till 15th April 2020. 2. Visa-free travel facility granted to OCI card holders has also been kept in abeyance till April 15, 2020. 3. All incoming travelers, including Indian nationals, arriving from or having visited China, Italy, Iran, Republic of Korea, France, Spain and Germany after 15 February shall be quarantined for a minimum period of 14 days. It was also decided that any foreign national who intends to travel to India for compelling reason may contact the nearest Indian mission. Indian nationals are strongly advised to avoid all non-essential travel abroad. On their return, they can be subjected to quarantine for a minimum of 14 days. International traffic through land borders will be restricted to designated checkpoints with robust screening facilities. These will be notified separately by the Ministry of Home Affairs.
Let's get in further details. A string of these fresh measures now that have been taken by the government of India. Our correspondent Ayushman is getting us further inputs. This is India vis-a-vis other restrictions coming in from other countries here as well. But given the fact, Ayushman, this is the coronavirus which is now already spread within India. It is no longer necessarily a case of coming in from travelers outside. With 73 cases within India, when are we getting an assurance of domestic screening that needs to start as well?
Well, sir, so far the government has clarified that the international passengers whosoever are coming are being given the declaration in which they are to give the details of their international travels, including the countries where the coronavirus outbreak has been there. At the same time, the government has clearly said that for now, the e-visa and visa facility has been suspended till till April. And right now, we heard the External Affairs Minister commenting in Rajya Sabha, in Lok Sabha and giving the details. So far, we don't have a clarity as to when the government will be screening the domestic arrivals, because to do that manually, it would be a Herculean task, and that has been maintained from the government side. But so far, today, if you talk about today, 73 cases, the number has gone up by 13. Till yesterday, it was 60, and 13 new cases have been detected today. And the breakup of that hasn't been given yet. At 3 p.m., we are being told Special Secretary Sanjeeva Kumar is going to brief the media over the latest developments that has taken place. But for now, definitely, India has quarantined itself from the world. The visa facility for all those people who want to come has been currently suspended, and all those diplomats and UN officials working here are only allowed to visit the country. Meanwhile, all those people who are currently there in the country, their visa continues to be functional, and if they want an extension, the FRO's office can do that.
Okay. Ayushman, please stay on with us while you're giving us details of travel curbs and how it is going to be impacting travelers here. Of course, we have entirely quarantined ourselves from the rest of the world here, but there are still a few exceptions. And what should those exceptions be taken into account once they enter India? Let's get in a word. My colleague, our correspondent Apurva, is getting us further details, further scrutinizing each of these travel restrictions that we're looking at today.
That's right, Seher. While India has quarantined itself from the rest of the world, even in India, we're looking at least 73 cases that have been reported. Let's look at some of those stringent curbs that have been imposed on travel by the Indian government. First of all the visas have been suspended till 15th of April, and this in the light of the kind of rising coronavirus cases that have been seen worldwide. Most importantly, they've been asked to contact the nearest Indian mission for any kind of emergency travel. Now, that has also been taken into consideration in case there is any kind of emergency travel. To assess that travel, they have to contact the nearest Indian mission. The travelers from 7 coronavirus hit countries to be quarantined for 14 days. Now, these 7 coronavirus hit countries includes China, Italy, Spain, Germany, and 3 other countries. So, in these countries, they will have to be quarantined at least for 14 days. Now, the incoming travelers have to avoid any kind of non-essential travel, and this has been one of the most important aspects that has been highlighted by the government time and again, to just avoid any kind of non-essential travel as much as possible. The Indians there have also been advised to avoid any kind of non-essential travel abroad as well, unless and until it is extremely necessary, and upon assessing the emergency situation is only then they will be looking into this matter. But on an average, they've been asked to avoid any kind of non-essential travel abroad. Meanwhile, the international traffic through land borders also going to be restricted. Now, there are several land borders where the traffic is going to be restricted, and they've put several checks and balances there to ensure and to prevent the spread of coronavirus as well. So these are some of the important stringent measures that have been taken. In addition to that, provisions for testing to be made primarily for the students and compassionate cases in Italy. Remember, we have seen a lot of cases where there have been videos released on asking for some kind of respite on compassionate grounds, especially students who are stuck in these areas. For that, there are provisions made of testing that is going to be made there, and only upon testing, further processes will be followed. So these are some of the stringent travel curbs ahead that has been taken in the light of the rising cases of coronavirus, and in an attempt to fortify ourselves, to fortify India from getting more cases of coronavirus positive here.
Right. All right, Apurva, thank you for getting us all of those inputs here. It's important that we take into account each of those points that have been raised by the government. Let's also put this forth now to our guests with us this afternoon. We have Mr. Ashwini Kakkar. He's the CEO of Mercury Travels. We also have Dr. Harshvardhan Puri, consultant for Lung Care Foundation here. First to you, Mr. Kakkar, in your view on how travel is being impacted here, more importantly, domestic travel, which the government is still not talking about, the precautions that one needs to take for domestic travel, because domestic travelers are still not being screened.
Well, I think the government has put in a good containment strategy. Most countries where the virus has advanced very much, they are already on a mitigation strategy. But I think, we have blocked it at a containment strategy, and that is a good thing. It's just that, the virus has spread a little bit within India, and it will be important to contain those 70 odd cases and the people that they have come into contact with. So these maybe 20,000 or 10,000 people who need to be monitored very carefully, and I think that is going to take the situation hopefully under control with a containment strategy. Now, looking at the overall global picture of travel, I think travel is the largest industry in the world. It's a $7 trillion industry. It employs about 10% of the world's employable people, and it contributes globally about 9% to world GDP. This is going to take a big hit. Now, even in India, if you look at it, just curbing this inbound travel, I think it's a good thing that has been done. But look at, I think we should also look at the cost. The cost is going to be about 500 crores of rupees of GDP per day. The overall, I think, is about $2 billion a month is what India gains from foreign visitors averagely. And I think that's going to be only on the inbound side. Equally, looking at the outbound side and the corporate travel, there will be further issues that will arise. Indigo, for example, has said that up to yesterday, their seat load factors were down by 20% already. I think this is going to see a further increase, and the seat load factors are going to go to approximately about 60% of what they were at the peak. Equally, I think hotel occupancies are also down.
All right.
And what we are seeing is that global events, whether they be religious events, sporting events, or meetings and business events. All these three categories are being shut off. For example, Makkah, Medina shut out for travelers. Similarly, if you see the Pontiff's Vatican is shut out. Jerusalem, there is a 14-day, I think, ban before you can reach Jerusalem. Similarly, I think if you see Basel World, in the watch exhibition has been cancelled. Geneva Motor Show has been cancelled, and ITB has been cancelled.
Absolutely.
World
So
Travel
we
and
are of
Tourism
course
Council
looking
has
at
been
a lot
cancelled.
of these cancellations now.
And equally, I
right.
think...
So this is, of course, the impact of the industry that we're talking about. Sir Kapur, my next question, of course, is going to be with respect to how we deal with this on a day-to-day basis in our own lives. Let me bring in Dr. Puri with us here as well. Dr. Puri, there's, of course, a very fine line between self-imposed precautionary restrictions and panic. Do you see a lot of panic, or do you think that these nature of restrictions are required? If you're looking at a 15% drop in domestic travel here as well, if you're looking at a drop with respect to Holi celebrations, are those positive precautionary measures or are those silly measures?
According to the medicine, I think this self-quarantine is a good step. I'm not talking about the financial aspect of what is going to happen after this, but at least some restrictions on foreign travel to India should be there. And equally important is a thing of a process of self-quarantine to the public also. If they are having some symptoms of flu and all those, they should self-quarantine themselves. These should be the etiquettes at the time of. There is nothing to panic, I think. The cases are increasing, but the mortality rate of this coronavirus is much less than the pandemics which India or other countries have faced in the past. So nothing to panic, but these kind of etiquettes should be there, I think.
Right. But Dr. Puri, when we continue saying this, that there's nothing to panic, the fatality rate, of course, have been larger, what we've seen in other epidemics as well. But when you have the WHO declare this a global pandemic, it is taking into account an aspect of fatalities having gone up. It is the uncontrollable spread of the virus, which is of larger concern here. So this is with respect to advisories for people like you and me on non-essential travel. Is it just about non-essential with respect to taking a flight, or is it also within your city?
As I earlier told also, the mortality rate is lower. It is around 2 to 3%, but the infectivity rate is much higher. It's around 3 times SARS. So yes, more and more people are getting affected because of this. So the advisory should be, advisory and appeal should be for all the people to cancel all non-essential travels, whether it is international, whether it is national. They should restrain themselves from going to crowded places if it is not necessary. All gatherings, whether personal, religious, and should be restricted. It is a kind of the most important hygiene, cleanliness, self-hygiene to the utmost at the moment, because see how it spreads. It's a droplet infection. So we have to see that at least we have the safe distance from the other person, at least a 1 meter or 3 feet distance from the other person, frequent hand washing, and all those measures which the government is talking with, which we health workers are telling people to take,
about the basics
should be taken
here,
into
and if the
consideration.
government has spoken about that as well, especially in the developments of the past 12 hours that we've seen. Let's get in very quickly a final question from my colleague, our correspondent Ayushman, with those details here. Ayushman, this is about precautions in public spaces, which are heavily crowded here. Has there been an update on what the government is talking about now? This is not just taking flights or non-essential travel outside, but within the country, precautions in public spaces.
Well, sir, the government has clearly said from the very beginning it has maintained that people should avoid gathering, and that was the reason we saw the senior ministers, including Prime Minister, openly saying that he would not be celebrating Holi. The first and foremost thing that the government has been focusing upon in past few days has been the appeal where people have been told not to be there in the gathering and avoid public gatherings. At the same time, sir, on the question of masks and the availability of sanitizers, the government has clearly said that the mask is not a necessary item for everybody to use. A sense of panic should not be there. If anybody feels that there is a symptom which is related to coronavirus, that a person is suffering, he can directly go to the health centers and get themselves checked. Even if somebody is not feeling well, he can himself be in a self-quarantine, and for that the advisory has also been released. Self-quarantine is the most important method that the government has talked about. If you talk about the Wuhan evacuation, be the people who have been brought, be the Italians who were brought, or all those patients, in all the advisories we have seen, Sahar, the isolation remains a bigger emphasis of the government, and for that only it has been said that everybody needs to be aware of the fact that one has to be kept in isolation if someone feels that he is not feeling well or some symptoms of coronavirus is there in that person.
Yes. All right, Ayushman, thank you for getting us those details. We have one of our viewers calling us in here as well. Mr. Asit Modi from Mumbai. Please go ahead.
Yeah, this is Asit Modi from Borivali, Mumbai. I would like to just ask whether it's safe to travel by road to internal parts of Maharashtra. Thank you.
All right, let me get that question here to Mr. Kakkar, since you're the travel expert here with us. This is road travel. Road travel within Maharashtra to internal rural areas of a state. What would you advise?
In line with what the government has said, I think, we should try and curb as much travel as possible. Because at this moment, the whole strategy is let's contain this virus. And, if we don't manage to contain it, the cost could be tremendous. I would say that if it is non-essential, please don't travel anywhere. If it is absolutely essential, then of course, you can take the normal precautions, ensure your safety and security, and then travel. Now, we are not the only country which is trying to do this. I think the United States, President Trump also announced similar measures and has imposed a total ban on from the 26 EU countries into the United States. And they're also trying to contain the virus and make sure that, their citizens are safe, as our government is trying to make sure that our citizens are safe. Equally, in spite of this containment strategy, look at the commitments on the amounts that these governments are going to spend. The United Kingdom has committed $39 billion to, ensure that this virus is contained. The EU has committed $29 billion. Australia has committed $18 billion. And the United States has committed $8.3 billion. So
and
large
why not?
Sums
This is a very clear sign that countries are taking this as a measure of emergency.
Absolutely.
Right. Also with respect to money allocated to contain the spread, yes. And it is impacting the sporting world. Now, sports, massive, major sports tournament which ride on millions of rupees, millions of dollars, are also taking this into account, irrespective of how big the tournament is. Let's in fact inform our viewers here as well on where all this is impacting. Various tournaments that we're looking at currently in India here. It is the IPL tournament, which is scheduled just at the end of this month, which is 29th. And there are various requests, pleas in court now coming in with the Madras High Court today, seeking responses both from the central government as well as the BCCI regarding a petition which is seeking a cancellation of IPL. Meanwhile, BCCI has already indicated that as far as the foreign players are concerned, they will not be able to come to India in the duration of this tournament because of the travel and visa restrictions. Also, the IPL governing body is to meet on the 14th of March to discuss the way forward, how to deal with this. And the former IPL chairperson, Mr. Rajiv Shukla, having spoken to the Times Network here on the possibility of IPL being delayed because of this.
Well, BCCI is also seized with the matter. The president, secretary, IPL chairman, everybody is on, keeping an eye on the whole situation, and they are deliberating also. And soon, in the governing council also, the matter would be discussed. We will abide by whatever government would suggest, and every precaution will be taken. So, I think with government advisory, everything, and the BCCI will abide by that, and accordingly will proceed. What is to be done, it will be decided later.
But there are visa restrictions been put in place, which makes it difficult for the foreign players to come in.
All these issues are there. All these issues are there, but all the issues will be resolved.
So worldwide, all games are being cancelled. Yes, today we've had NBA season entire cancelled. A person who was watching the T20 World Cup final has tested positive at the MCC. So advisories and precautions all say that the BCCI should at least talk about postponing IPL, if not cancelling it.
No, this advisory about postponement has not come. So I don't think it would be right to put it like this. But all the precautions will be taken.
All right, that is of course on the sporting front here. But once again, the focus back on what you and I can be doing here. Dr. Puri, when is the right time to be visiting a doctor? Because are we in a position to have had a clearer picture of the past few weeks and a month and a half that we've seen of the outbreak of the virus here? On the right time to be visiting the doctor? Earlier it was said that it is very similar to a seasonal flu. Now, are there clearer signs?
See, still the thing should be clear that it is something very similar to a flu in a population which is less than 60. It won't be doing much. It would be something like some cold and cough symptoms, and everybody having these symptoms should follow the principle of self quarantine. And if the symptoms are not resolved within 24 to 48 hours or 72 hours, then they should go and visit their physicians. The list of hospitals has been given to most of the news channels where you can go and get yourself tested for coronavirus. And there are many myths being circulated in WhatsApp and all those stuff that masks are essential for everyone to be worn, and this hand sanitizers are a necessity to be fighting with. I'm clearly telling, even hand washing with normal soap for 20 seconds is enough. And these masks are not for everyone.
Okay.
These are particularly for the people who think they are suffering from coronavirus, who have these symptoms, to quarantine their droplet infection to other people, and for the healthcare personnel who are dealing with the patients. Not for everyone. So there is nothing to be, no panic should be created in the public that they should store these masks in their houses and buy 20 to 25 bottles of sanitizers. Nothing like that. And visiting a physician when the symptoms don't resolve for a few days.
Mr. Kakkar, as far as this practice of wearing masks is concerned, it's more coming in from the concern here that the person who is actually unwell is not wearing the mask, so we are wearing it, or the person who's fit is wearing it to protect yourself. Very often in public spaces, people who actually have a flu are not really wearing those masks.
Yeah, Sahar, the thing is that this is about self-quarantine. So the people who really should be wearing those masks are those who actually need to quarantine themselves. I think, just keeping yourself 1 meter away from people who would even sneeze or who would even have any kind of symptoms would be enough to kind of make sure that you don't contract the virus. And I think if these normal precautions are followed, people can remain safe and secure. But I think, this whole culture of just going out and buying hundreds of masks and buying sanitizers and, creating all this panic, that is not required. I think one should be just judicious enough to follow the normal things about, keeping yourself about a meter away from everybody else. And if you feel unwell,
basic hygiene, a lot of it that we seem to have missed out on. That's right. Mr. Kakkar, Dr. Puri, appreciate you being with us this afternoon, giving in some very important tips, elementary information here, which is what it is at the end of the day. This is basic hygiene in personal life that you need to manage, that you need to revisit if you've forgotten a bit of it. It's really as basic as that. Let's not spread the panic. Yes, there are a number of cases, fresh cases that keep coming each year. But as far as we remain committed to maintaining personal hygiene, to keeping our surroundings clean, that's really the best way to battle coronavirus. Thank you for being with us.